Hello, and welcome to the July episode of Backlight Boston presented by Luminarium Dance. You might be enjoying better audio quality thanks to Steph and Wes Josie, who last month donated at the Luminarium's Gala a Yeti microphone. You can download this episode as a podcast for the first time on Stitcher and SoundCloud. Today we have Adrienne Hawkins joining us for our interview. I hope you enjoy. So joining us this week is Adrienne Hawkins. Adrienne, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, no problem. All the way around the corner.
So, artistic director of Impulse Dance, co-director of Baseline Motion.
Mm-hmm.
You've made your way from Arizona State to Connecticut College, North Carolina, Tokyo, Florida, New York, back here to Massachusetts. Kind of what makes you want to, stay here in Massachusetts?
Well, actually, I've always been in Massachusetts. I've always been based in, no, I shouldn't say always. I grew up in New Jersey and then went to actually Tennessee State, Arizona State. I moved to Philly. I went to Connecticut College. I came up here to Boston to teach at BU out of graduate school. And in that, once I got here, Boston became my base, and I began to travel all over the place doing specific jobs, projects, choreography, summer programs, just all kinds of things.
So is this something particular like about Boston that made you kind of call this home or call this, your base that you went?
Well, there's one thing about Boston that's very interesting. There's a lot of colleges, and so since I have a master's, it's like I sort of move out the people who have BFAs, I have a master's, even though it wasn't, I didn't like, I need to have a master's. It just so happened that I was at Connecticut College at the time. At that time, I was living there, so I went back and got my master's. But, Boston Conservatory, BU, I'm trying to think of where else I taught. UMass Boston, UMass Amherst, Dean, Stonehill. They all, at some point or another, I can do a specific course, a specific job, and then leave.
Yeah.
And then I always have the opportunity to get another job somewhere doing something. Yeah, I'm at ART now, which is really kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you find, kind of the teaching, it's like your choreography where you're able to, work on something, very intensely for a short period of time and then kind of move on and, the same with your students and.
Well, I did have a company that was basically had rehearsal every single day from 1 to.
Wow.
Yeah, so from 1 to 4, Monday through Friday. So, the intensity, and that I had for a good, I would say close to 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so every day throughout the whole summer, I never had a day off really, not unless something was happening. So that intensity, and we toured, we went to Australia, we went to St. Thomas, we went all through the South, we went to APAP, we did all of this traveling and stuff. And then at some point or another, a lot of the money dried up, and it was like so hard. And the business manager was crazed, and she, and we just all said, well, let's just take a break. And once we took a break, we went. Everybody exhaled, and everybody just went, And then it was like, do you want to start back? Wait. Let me feel this, right? Let me feel this little lack of intensity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, real early in your career, kind of your beginnings in dance.
My beginnings in dance is really funny. Because, I had no plans of being a dancer, none whatsoever. I wanted to be a lawyer. And so what happens is that, but I was always a natural athlete. I could always run, jump, hit, throw, My brother played pro football for 10 years.
Wow.
My father he didn't play pro football, but he got a scholarship to in football when he was in college. My niece and my nephew, they both got scholarships. My niece got for basketball, my nephew got for football. My whole family is just athletically inclined.
You have the genes for it.
That's right. And so what happens is that when I went to college, This was before whatever title number that is, Title 9?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there wasn't any structured team or anything. And so I was out in Arizona, and I wanted to do something. So I said, oh, well, I'll go and I'll take something out of the PE, something. And actually, the first thing I took was something like jazzercise or something. And I made up a dance. I made up a routine because we have to do exercises at the end of it. And what I did was, and I remember it, my teacher looked at me like I was crazy. I stuffed my sweatpants and sweatshirt with all kinds of clothes and stuff. And I did all my exercises to, there was a popular song at that time called The Stripper. And so what happens is that I would take and I would throw I would do an exercise and throw the clothes out. And my teacher looked at me and go, no, you need to take a dance class. Not exercise. You should take a dance class. And I found one that worked. And I'm like, this is what I'm going to go for. And I found out it was the composition class. And they said, and they looked at me because, everybody knows everybody in the composition class, because they've been taking dance classes. They looked at me and they go, well, who are you? I said, well, I'm here to take a dance class. And they go, well, we don't really dance. We make up dances. I said, I could make up a dance.
Sure.
They said, oh, okay. Have you had technique class before? And I'm like, technique class? No, I haven't. They go, well, if you take a technique class, we'll let you stay in the composition class. Sure. I said, okay. And I walked in, and the teacher looked at me, and she said, have you had any technique? I said, no, do it. I'll be able to pick it up. Just do it. I know I can pick it up. And because she was new, she said, okay. I don't know why she said okay. I have no idea, but that was how I started. And then after that, and it's really interesting in teaching, because when I look at people, I could look through them and tell them exactly muscularly what they need to change in order to get what results they want from. And I think that comes from being a natural athlete, because I can look at not what you do, but how you do it. And I would just pick out the one that did it the best and see, through her how she did it. And that was how I would proceed. And not what she did, but how she did it.
So that's obviously influenced you as a teacher to this day.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at,
oh, yeah.
Some of the students that you
Oh,
have.
Yeah. Kill them. They're all sore. I don't know how you got to that muscle. I don't even know where that muscle came from. I said that was the muscle that didn't work. We are going to make it work. Yeah.
So while you may be regarded, to many dancers, kind of as their mentor or idol, who are some of your mentors?
Oh my goodness. The person who I worked with for a long time when I was in graduate school was Daniel Negrin. And I assisted him for, I don't know, maybe 6 years, all through graduate school, and then at ADF, American Dance Festival. And then I taught his classes at ADF when it moved from Connecticut College down to Duke. And I was associated with ADF for like about 8 years or so, something like that. Yeah. Another one is Fred Benjamin, who just passed away. He was sort of like the one that was like, you better pick it up now, we're going on. I'm like, Clay Taliaferro, who worked with the Limon, Kathy Grant, who was a Pilates teacher, Thelma Hill, who was a Horton teacher, Lenore Latimer, that was a Limon teacher. These are all people that were just amazing. They were amazing influences on me on how they moved and how they how they moved through space. Because I love space. I love moving through space. Yeah.
That's great. So what do you think, is vital for local dancers or choreographers, to start their journey in dance, as new choreographers or new dancers? You're obviously influencing people, who are just starting out in their career or, in college, and, what advice do you have for them?
Well, it's really interesting because I teach composition. I taught composition in college. And the one thing that I always tell them, I said, and it's really hard to say this because they want to do it. I said, you don't want to use somebody else's vocabulary to speak your story. Because what happens is that story has already been told. Because a lot of times when they take class, they assume, spelled outside of you and me, that vocabulary is something that they need to hold on to. And they don't think of what they want to say and what movement is indicative of what they want to say, rather than what's been said already before, and assume that when we look at it, oh yeah, that arabesque means that, we're lonely, and no, it doesn't. It's an arabesque. Get over it. It's an arabesque. What is it that says that? What movement, not a gesture, movement says it. What's tense? What's the qualities? What's the things that is the essence of it? Go take away everything. What is your core kernel idea? And what are the qualities that are associated with that? Because what happens is that when you run out of movement, you have to go back to that core kernel so that it all says the same thing, as opposed to going out, on a limb somewhere, and you don't really bring your thought process back to the original idea, but onto another place completely.
So do you find that, difficult, today in colleges where,
oh yeah,
there might be, some kind of groupthink, or, where you have kind of the Twitter and Facebook where, it's kind of, you can go on YouTube and see something and people are not really being creative, or because of some of these tools and, how much more information people can pull on, how much more dance people are able to see, that they're more creative today than, they were, maybe when you first started?
There is a thing. Okay. What happens a lot of times, and I see it in a lot of ways. A lot of the teachers in composition, they all read the same composition book, and then they all teach it really similar. And because the students want to get a grade, they all start going in a particular way. So some of the stuff, when you look at it, it could be an hour and a half of 6 different people. But you look at it and you go, that could have been the same piece, except that maybe they changed their costumes. Even the music, and I always tell my kids, not my kids, but the kids, I said, you are the only one that knows the story from when you were born till now. That is your range. I said, my range happened way back here.
Sure.
And so what happens is that you are the storyteller of this era, which is not my era. So therefore, what you have to bring to the table is something that I will not understand. But if you don't bring it to the table, it's not going to be there.
And that's something that, you want to be able to understand, kind of seeing that
No,
piece.
I don't have to understand it. I have to look at it and say I like it or not like it.
Sure.
I don't have to understand it. And that's the thing. It's like you don't have to understand it. Because that's when we get into, okay, is this a dance or is it a paper? I don't want a paper,
Yeah.
I want to dance. When you understand the craft of movement, you begin to craft movement that has the possibility of telling your story, which is not necessarily, the arabesque, the tendu, the drop, the look, the reach, the this, the run over here, fall down, stop, come back. And it doesn't have to always be angst. Oh, Angst gets me, a whole concert of angst just makes me angst. Yeah.
So is it something where, you're saying that, the story that they're telling, it might not necessarily be the story that you're interpreting from that. It might not necessarily be the story that they were trying to tell, because your, life experience is different, from what...
I think it is, and I think you will never be able, in a dance, to approximate everything that you want, but you will have a feeling about it. Yes.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to say what it is, but you will be able to feel it, and what is the qualities of that specific feeling that you can bring out.
Yeah.
Terror is not necessarily terror. It could be the fact of fast movement that is nonstop.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be written across your face, and it doesn't have to be, and if that's the case, even sharp movement, is it something that is tense, something that is, you anticipate something that is suspenseful, something that you really can't see, but you feel like it's there. What does that feel or look like? What qualities that you can interpret from that? Yeah.
So for me, as an outsider, as a kind of a non-dancer, it seems like you've accomplished it all. You've done.
Well, no, let's not say all. I'm waiting for them to carry me down the street on a little, but no, go ahead.
So, how do you stay goal-oriented? What keeps you motivated? What kind of goals do you have moving forward?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's so vast. It's each era of like Boston dance history is a complete and different, it's in a complete and different place. When I first came in, I would say there were more black dancers, companies, etc., etc. And over the year, I have like sort of outlived everybody. So I am here by myself. It's kind of like, okay, what are we doing here? And so to bring a black aesthetic to Boston is very hard on a stage in which technique is recognizable. Not hip hop. In hip hop, there's like, everybody's doing hip hop. They're doing hip hop, United Styles, Rainbow Tribe, this and that and the other thing, and go, I don't know, everybody, not everybody, but, But there isn't a technical black aesthetic in Boston, which is really interesting to me. I sort of went out of the Boston dance scene for quite a while because I was in colleges. And in colleges, it's just, the people who go to those colleges all the way around. I haven't taught at the Dance Complex or Green Street in like 10, 15 years, And then all of a sudden, to go out and really look around, and I'm like going, they are being trained because of the Boston Arts Academy, and other places that are in Boston. But for me now, there is a aesthetic that is missing in the Boston area, and that's one thing I would love to like bring forth.
Do you think it's something that the Boston dance scene is more post-racial at this point, or they're just not celebrating kind of that black
There's
dance?
There's nobody who's choreographing.
Yeah.
Oh wait, Gene, but he's doing Haitian dance, and Ricardo's doing hip hop, and Rainbow Tribe is doing. They're trying to bridge their gap, but there's no rainbow in Rainbow Tribe. Very few. We have like, it's kind of like multi one color. Yes, in Rainbow Tribe. So it's to bring people in from different places, that will show that there are people who are doing technical things, and not necessarily the fact of it has to be a complete black aesthetic, we have to do all black dance or something like that. But what happens is that to do dance that is for what I think, it's a degree of sensuality, a degree of, movement, I'm fishing for words now. I'm looking at you like, well, I got two. Maybe I better pick another one up. Let me get another one out here,
So then, what are you working on? It's something.
I just got finished doing. It was Mayfair River Festival up in Vermont. We're doing something at ICA and something like that, and it's a suite done to Ray Charles.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's called A Ray of Sun.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really, and it's fun, and people are just like, oh, okay, because it is so away from the subject matter and the feel of the dance that is now coming in through Boston.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, if people want to come and see some of those performances or see some of the other things that you're working on, like how would they go about, finding you or finding some of the things you're working on?
Yeah.
Taking a class from you.
I teach on Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday at Green Street, Wednesday at Dance Complex, 6:00, both days. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And then if they want to see your performances, is there a webpage they can look at? Or?
No, actually there's not. They have to friend me on Facebook. I do have a website, but what happens is that it's not updated. I mean, you know how that goes. People click on it, it's like, oh, okay, was this 5 years ago? Yeah.
Well, that's great, Adrienne.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay.
Down in Atlanta, GA, under the viaduct every day, drinking corn and hollering hooray, piano playing till the break of day. But as I turned my head, I loudly said, oh, preach them blues, sing them blues, they certainly sound good to me. I've been in love for the last 6 months, and I ain't done worrying yet. Moan them blues, holler them blues, let me convert your soul. Oh, just a little spirit for the blues tonight. Let me tell you, girls, if your man ain't treating you right, go on and preach them blues, sing them blues, they certainly sound good to me.
Who knew that Adrienne Hawkins would be such a dynamic speaker? I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed interviewing Adrienne Hawkins. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach us on Twitter at Backlight Boston. You can also email us at info@luminariumdance.org. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next month. Thank you.